Hello, everybody. My name is Perla Peñalosa. I'm broker of Listed Right Realty. Today, I have the pleasure of having Christy Yanta. Christy is an attorney. She also owns a title company. She is joining us today to answer some of our most frequent asked questions. So, Christy, you want to introduce yourself? Tell them a little bit of what you do.
Thank you, Perla. I am Christy Yanta. I am an attorney. I do real estate and estate planning. I also have a title company. As attorneys, we do get to do title as well. I am very familiar with this process as I've been doing it over 17 years now.
Only 17 years.
Only 17 years.
You want to jump right in? And
Sure, absolutely.
What is the role of a title company in a sales process?
So the title company, they run the searches. They want to make sure the property is free and clear. So it's going to pull up, it's going to go to the official records. We're going to look up, who owns the property. Is the person that's telling you that they own the property, really, do they own the property? Are there mortgages on the property? That's really what the title company does in the sales process.
Okay, and another question I have for you. How do we take title in Florida? Because I know it does vary depending on state to state. Could you tell us a little bit about the difference between what we do here in Florida versus maybe California or a different state?
Sure. Something that is actually very unique to Florida is with married couples. With married couples, we have a right to your homestead. If this is your homestead, you are residing in the property and you are married. Whether or not you own it with your spouse automatically has a right to that property. That is primary residence. The rest of the property will come into play. Unfortunately, if you get divorced, the divorce court will deal with how to split it. If you're going to get a mortgage on the property, even if the spouse is not on title, they're going to sign. They're going to sign to acknowledge that a lien is being put on their property because they do own half of it, whether or not they are on title.
Can I use an attorney, or do I need a title company to be able to do a close?
This is a good question because it differs for state to state. So in the state of Florida, we have title companies are licensed by the Department of Insurance. They can actually conduct closings and do title. Also, in Florida, we're licensed attorneys. We're licensed by the Florida Bar, and they give us the authority to do closings as well. As an attorney, I do have the authority to be able to do a little bit more with affidavits.
Okay.
One thing that you do, I want to caution you with, is a lot of people will go to a title company to do a deed that is not part of a closing. Title companies cannot and should not be doing this unless there is an attorney on staff. Only attorneys are licensed to do deeds that do not have title insurance involved in it.
Really?
Yeah.
So what happens to a person, for example, we get a lot of times where, these cash or investors that they love, that they're not themselves to deed, or they, a lot of times we get like for sale by owners that are like, I'll just sell you my house. What would you caution them on making sure that they avoid, and especially as a seller, and not get in trouble? What are the risks?
Reach out to an attorney, because once you're adding someone onto that property, they then are an owner to that property, and you're going to need their authority to sign. You're going to need their authority to do anything. So if someone is approaching you and they want to come on title with you, reach out to an attorney.
They run away, huh?
Yes, very quickly. All of a sudden you can't find them. They're nowhere to be found. They're not returning your calls, your messages. So
good information there. How does the title search process work?
So I wish I could tell you this title search process is a quick process, because people, would like to get a contract and sell the next day, but it's not. What we do, one of the things we do is we do a title search through the official records. We go back over 50 years. They are checking, our underwriters are checking to make sure that there's been no holes in title, that the people who actually should have been deeding the property were deeding the property. We go back, we check, are there mortgages? Are there construction liens filed? Are there judgments against the owners? So it is a process. It takes a couple of days. One of the things we also do is we get a city lien search, because we want to check, make sure that there's no open or code violation, open or expired permit. We want to look into those because those all could become issues when you own the property. So it takes a while. I always ask for a minimum of 15 business days.
I know that the permits does vary depending on county to county. Certain counties are more strict on making sure the permits are closed versus other. How much of an issue is that to convey title and to get title insurance for a buyer,
right,
or a seller?
So permits are actually not a cloud on title, but your contract controls what happens with the permit. So if you're using a typical as-is contract, it states that the burden of closing any open or expired permits are actually on the buyer. But what I see is a lot of agents will add additional language into the contract saying that the seller is responsible to close any open or expired permits. So it's not going to be an issue with title insurance. It's going to be an issue with actually getting it closed, because if the seller has agreed to close them, they're going to have to close them. Now, if they're old expired permits, like I'm taking beyond 10 years, a lot of times the city will work with you and they'll get it closed pretty quickly.
What are some of the defects that are on title? Can you give us an example?
Oh my goodness. The ones I've seen is, so let's say you have a married couple and the husband's on title alone, and they say to the people, nope, I'm single, I could sign. But it comes out that no, they're married and the spouse did not join. That is a mistake. And we have to get a corrective deed to correct that. That's a huge mistake. And I see that a lot. Sometimes people get married during the closing process and they don't want to tell anyone. You need to convey that, because like I said, especially when it is your primary residence, your spouse has to join, or that is not considered a true conveyance because one person did not sign. So that's a huge defect we see.
Now I have another question.
Okay.
So what happens if, let's say, I buy a property and at the time I'm not married, but then I get married after the fact? And, we get married and, paradise doesn't work as great as we thought it was going to work. And we end up getting divorced. Okay. Or going through divorce. Even though my name was not on the deed when my husband purchased the property, do I have any right over that particular property if I lived in it as our primary residence?
It's going to depend on what the divorce decree says.
Okay.
So, but typically you would still need to quitclaim your name off of it, because at one point you did live there. And so the divorce decree should have addressed it.
But what if I was never on the deed?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Because you did live there and it was your property at one point, you had an interest in it, the divorce decree should have addressed it.
Is title insurance necessary? Would you recommend it?
So that is a good question, because on the settlement statement, a lot of times it says it's optional. As an attorney who does title, I would say it's never optional. So what title insurance does, people don't understand. So you have car insurance, those insure future events, right? So those are like, if I'm in a car accident, I have car insurance to cover it. If there's a hurricane, I have homeowners insurance to cover it. Title insurance, it covers something in the past. So let's say like that example I said about the spouse did not join in the deed. So the spouse comes back 3 years and says, oh wait, I own the property, I never signed off on it. Title insurance would actually pay her out. That's what title insurance does. So that it ensures your title to the property. To me, it's very important, because that is your, that's a lot of times people's biggest assets is their home.
Right. And it protects them from basically anything that the title company may have missed.
Yeah,
correct?
absolutely.
Perfect. Now, what are the closing costs involved with selling a property? Now, I want to go there's two parts to this question.
Yes, there are.
I want to go with part number one, which is, your conventional sale where I'm paying cash and I'm using you for certain services. And the other part, which would be I'm getting a loan.
Right.
Right.
And there are two different parts. Absolutely. So if it's a cash transaction, your closing costs are going to be obviously less than if there's a loan. You're going to have a settlement fee to both sides. Whether or not buyer or seller is paying title, that's going to determine who pays the title cost, but it's still the same title cost. You've got a title commitment fee. You're going to have a city lien search fee, owner's title insurance. Whether or not it's a cash or mortgage, you get as a buyer, you may want a survey. So you're going to have a survey fee. There's going to be documentary stamps for the transfer that's on the deed, and a recording fee for the deed. That's really your basic for a cash transaction. There's not as rough ballpark. Oh goodness, it's going to depend on, it's hard to say because it depends on the value. Title insurance and documentary stamps are all dependent on the value of the property.
Is there like a percent?
It is a percentage. So the doc stamps is like, it's a percentage. It's like, it's a percentage. I don't know the number. Yeah, it's a percentage.
Okay, got it.
A mortgage.
Right.
So obviously with a mortgage, you're going to have more fees. So you're going to pay documentary stamps and intangible tax on the mortgage, in addition to the deed. And typically, just so you know, in the state of Florida, documentary stamps on the deed is typically a seller's cost. But I say everything is negotiable.
Yeah, and from a mortgage perspective, we usually see that range anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000, depending on the property, the homeowner's insurance, the taxes. Not a set figure. It varies for everybody, depending on what kind of loan they're getting and all the other good stuff. So I always love when people are asking, what am I going to pay? It depends on the house. It depends on the insurance. It depends on the taxes. There's too many variables for anybody to give you an exact number until you actually have a property in mind. How long from the title perspective does it normally take the closing to take place?
Typically, it's about 30 to 45 days because, you have an inspection period. And during that inspection period, if it is an as-is contract, you as the buyer get to back out. So most of the time, nothing's really started. You're going to do an inspection and that's it. Then you've got to wait for if there's a mortgage, the lender's going to do an appraisal. We get the title request and then we're ordering everything. If it's in a homeowners association or a condo, we then have to get estoppels. You have to get approvals. So all of those things come into play. So I say a typical closing is about 30 days, and if you're getting a VA, I'd probably say it's probably more closer to 45 days.
Yeah. What documents are needed for the sale of the transaction? They need to bring certain documents.
Okay. So we're going to need to see your ID. Shocker. And it needs to be valid. That's another shocker.
What if the property is owned in a trust? Do you need the trust?
Oh, so yep, that's a good point. If it's in the trust, I need to see a copy of the trust because the trust documents actually dictate if they have the right to sell. Now, what if the trustee has passed? The trust will dictate who is the successor trustee, who has the authority to sign. So I need to see the trust. If it's in a corporation, an LLC or an Inc., I always go online. I see who are the members who are authorized. I'm going to need to see their licenses, see them. Anyone who's going to be signing needs to give me the proper ID to be able to sign anything. As a notary, because I'm notarizing these documents.
Can you explain to us the difference between a warranty deed and a quitclaim deed, Christy?
Yes. So a warranty deed, the seller is actually warranting the property. They're saying that they've owned it since they've gotten title to it and they have the right to sell it. A quitclaim deed, there's no warranty. So we're seeing quitclaim deeds a lot of times if you're adding a family member, you're just adding them on. The seller is still owning the property. Where the warranty deed is really what you're going to see with a title insurance transaction because they are warranting the property. Now, there also is a special warranty deed. I see that a lot of times with foreclosures. Because the lenders are getting property to the title at the courthouse steps. So they cannot warranty the title to it prior to when they owned it. So the special warranty says as long as they've owned it, they're warranting the property.
How does the title company ensure a quick and smooth closing transaction?
Oh, that is a good question. Ultimately, first and foremost, it's communication. The title company is the one who's communicating with everyone. They're communicating with the realtors, the buyers, the sellers, the lenders. So that's one of the things that allows it to go so smoothly is a lot of times I come across problems, but I'll tell you, the realtors, they never know about the problems because I'm working on it. I understand that a lot of these buyers, especially if they're first-time home-time buyers, they're excited. They don't want to know about the problems associated with it. So I don't typically let anyone know. I just smoothly deal with everything until we get to the closing table and then it closes.
Perfect. Now, one other question that we have, and we're going to wrap this up real quick. If I'm buying a property for my friend and I'm paying cash, do I need to use someone like you? And would you recommend using a title company or attorney? What are the risks involved with it?
You absolutely need someone like me because anytime you're giving cash to someone for a property, you want to make sure you are actually getting title to that property. And of course, I'm an attorney, so I'm going to tell you, you want to go to an attorney over a title company because, like I said, there are certain things I could do. When I'm looking through title and there are maybe defects, I have the authority to be able to create affidavits. I go to my underwriter and say, okay, I've seen this. Can we do an affidavit? Can I do this? And I could sign it as an attorney affidavit. A title company can't do that. Also, down the road, like I've had an instance where they've come to me after the closing and they wanted to actually add one of the spouses onto title. They wanted to do that at the closing, but the title company said, oh no, we can't do it. We can't give you advice on vesting. We can't do it. Don't worry, just do it after closing. It'll only be $80. Well, that's not true because there's a loan on it. As an attorney, if you're telling me that that's something you want to do, okay, we're going to do an addendum. We're going to make sure that that gets done at closing so that you're not incurring other costs.
Well, we appreciate all of your information. This has been very, very informative. We definitely have to do other sessions. I think the next one will probably be on trust because that's a top that a lot of people have. And we could talk for hours and hours about this and still have many, many questions. So I want to appreciate your time, Christy. Could you please give us, how people can reach you, email, phone number, all that other good stuff?
Absolutely. So it's going to be really hard. It's going to be my first name, Christy, and it's CHRISTY at, shocker, my last name, YONTA law.com. I know I try to make it very complicated for people not to get a hold of me. And then my phone number is 772-349-4923. One of the things I like to do, and Perla is an amazing realtor because we're always, if she has any questions, she's reaching out to me. If I have any questions, I'm reaching out to her. We work together. And so, I just want to say thank you so much, Perla, for having me on and being a part of it.
Well, thank you, Christy. And Christy's an excellent professional. I've been working with her for years. We've had files where a title company wasn't exactly able to help us out, and Christy's come in and saved the day. She's very knowledgeable, has been in business for a long time. Anybody that needs title services, Christy's my go-to person, so feel free to reach out to her. You guys will be in good hands. Thank you.
Thank you.